I think it's really easy to potentially hire the wrong job search coach, the wrong career coach, or join the wrong job search program, as it can be with any challenge we're having in our lives, because we're at a point where we're thinking, like, what I'm doing isn't working. And sometimes we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what's not working. And therefore, it's like, well, how do we figure out who can help us? That's what this video is about. You can use this video to vet a career coach who's giving individual help, a program, or I think a lot of this advice will even help you decide what type of person you should listen to, even if they're just giving you free advice. So let's get into it. The first thing I want you to vet when you're looking at a program for job search strategy, career coaching, whatever, is does this person know more about this overall problem and solution than I do? You might be like, I don't really know how to do that. All of the following stuff I'm going to do is going to help to determine that. But I think you are looking for, do they have a general grasp on what's happening? And it's not just about, can they solve my problem? I shouldn't be the only person on earth with this challenge. And if they're treating you like you are, then chances are they're working with all these different clients with different problems, and they don't necessarily have a methodology and a problem solution approach. So number one is, if it seems like the person doesn't know a lot more about how to find a job than you do, then probably just do it on your own. So the second thing is, they can tell you or you can see in their website a reason that you haven't gotten a job yet. So let me give you an example. If someone comes to me and says, I need interview coaching, I don't just assume that they need interview coaching, because I want to understand what's behind it. Many of what my clients have in common, a lot of people that work with me are really strong communicators. So often, yeah, there's things that I would recommend that they would change in interviewing, but it's not the main thing preventing that person from getting a job. So I talk to people and I'll say, well, okay, tell me how many interviews you've done. And sometimes they'll say, I've done one. Okay, well, interviewing might not be your challenge. The challenge might be, we need to find more leads for you. But another thing that they'll say is, I got to the second round or the third round, sometimes if there's more, on 4, 5, 6 jobs. And I'll say, okay, cool. How did you find that job? And what I'm realizing is that they're up against people who got referrals. And so even if we make sure that their interview is awesome, if we don't solve that other challenge, it's still going to be a challenge for them to get a job. You see what I'm saying? It's holistic. And so that's my opinion. That's my approach. But the point is, if a client says, I need resume writing, I'm just like, cool, I'm going to provide resume writing. I want to understand what's actually happening for you and your overall job search. And so I will say, here's what I think is actually happening. And people will often see that in my website, right? Because my programs and even my one-on-one coaching isn't right for everybody. So you can see that on my website. You can ask me over an email if you're interested in my programs, or sometimes in some cases we'll be able to get a one-on-one call and talk through that. So is it clear when you're hiring someone or joining their program why you aren't getting a job? What is the problem to be solved? That's the second thing I want you to look for. The third thing I want you to look for is, will this program or coach be able to get you the job that you want, not just any job? Because I actually we'll kind of get into this if you've watched my other videos. Cool, they can help you get a job. But often if you're looking for the wrong type of job, that might be a problem and actually might be overqualified. The goal here is for you to get the job that you want. And often you looking for the wrong jobs will be part of a hiring manager's being like, this is not the right thing, right? So the solutions aligning into, we are matched on what type of job it should be. And on top of that, what type of salary it should be. On people's website, you might have to ask this question, and they cannot promise you can get a certain type of salary. But I would say, does the program approach oh, you should be going for this level and help you market yourself higher? Does the program include salary negotiation? If you feel like you're great at that, cool. But I think there's always things we can do to negotiate more money. And at the end of the day, maybe you're good at negotiation, but are you actually applying for jobs that are high enough for you? Look for Is this program actually going to get me the job that I want for the salary I want at the level I want? Okay, the fourth thing is actually just another way of saying the previous things I said. You and the other person, coach, or the program is clear on what success looks like. So the idea here is, again, going back to what's the type of job you want, but they should be saying this, if you're looking to do XYZ, this program is for you, and make sure that that is clear in the website or then that you ask. Because, for example, if you're thinking like, I only want to get a job at one of the big tech companies or a big fancy company, a lot of times I'm going to tell you that's not what success looks like for me, and my programs might not match up with that well. So I have plenty of clients who get jobs at those places, but I'm interested in working with people who are like, this is the type of work that I love. This is the amount I want to get paid. For me, that's really important, that it's not just about the brand name. There could be some exceptions, but this is a specificity of, are we aligned on what success looks like in this engagement? All right. The fifth thing I want you to look for is that they know what their ideal client looks like. So in my example, my programs are built for people who are in a place where they need to market themselves, often for a change, but they are in fields that use soft skills mostly. So let me give an example of who my client is and who my client is not. This is what the website should say if you're going to join a program, or this is what the person should be able to tell you when you ask. I need you to be in a field that is, there's a lot of things it could be. For example, program management, project management, learning and development, customer success, or anything kind of sales adjacent, marketing, things that rely on a lot of times communication and what we call soft skills. And so let me give you an example of who my client is not. Usually my client is not a quota carrying salesperson, or if that's the kind of job you're looking for, that's rarely who you're coming to. Usually you're not in a certain types of finance roles. But the most important one is you are not someone who is like a developer. You're not highly, highly technical, because the way that a resume is going to be written, the way that you market yourself, if you are a software developer, if coding is a big part of your job, if you're program managers, project managers can vary, but if you're highly technical in that, that is usually not going to make sense for us, and what I'm going to teach you will not apply there. So there are people that I turn away based on that, or it should be clear on my website that that's not the person. And to be honest with you, if someone joined one of my group programs and they wrote that they were a developer, and I probably would try to I might say to them, hey, I need to know more about this, and this might not be a good fit for you, because at the end of the day, I want people to be happy. So they can tell you who their client is and who their client is not. If they don't know that, it might be because they haven't been in business long enough to understand who their client is or who there isn't, and what advice they're going to give may or may not apply to you, because advice differs based on the career that you're pursuing, factors about who you are, things like that. So look for, does their website list, or can they tell you who their client is and who their client is, who their programs are going to work for. The next thing I want you to ask yourself is, does the person have a framework? You could think about this as a curriculum, but a framework is usually more high level that, and it's like the system. So for example, there are 9 steps that my clients need to get a job. I have a few exceptions. Maybe 10% of my clients, we flip out, we say this one isn't as important. But for the most part, the vast majority of my clients need to go through all 9 steps. And it also varies how much time they need to work on that, which is why the group program is so effective, because they can pick and choose where they put their time, and it's very cost effective. Or if we're working on a one-on-one engagement, we might spend a little bit more time on some things than others. But it is not like a guess how someone gets a job. It's like, if you follow these 9 steps, you will get a job. And again, is there gray area in that, how you do them, how you execute? Of course there is. But there's a methodology. It's not like, for you, the solution is this. For you, the solution is this. If I were a personal trainer, and some of my clients, I had them doing, one thing and they were all doing something different, that'd be weird, right? Okay, we know that like weight training can be really good for your bones. Maybe you hate that, but like probably some of my clients are going to be doing cardio, some are going to be doing weight training, and then there's going to be a mix of them, right? Like maybe there's some yoga in there or whatever, stretching, but for the most part, it's all going to be combinations of the same building blocks. There's probably a methodology. And you know what? Trainers probably choose to specialize in, I do mostly weight training because just like I say, if you're highly technical, you're not the best client for me. So that makes sense. So look for someone who has, they can call it a framework. It's sometimes their methodology. It might even look like a curriculum, but you can see the steps in it and really ask them like, what are the common denominators? What are the common steps that your clients have taken to get a job? And is there something that if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be able to get a job? That is really important to this process. Something that I want you to look for that is not just about if you should hire that person or if they're right for you, is also about you and your expectations if you're going to hire someone or join a program. What is your role and what is that person's role? I want you to be clear about that because when I first started doing this type of work, what would happen is if I worked with someone one-on-one, I realized they thought they were turning this whole thing over to me. So they'd show up for all their meetings, but they wouldn't do any work in between. So it's like, I can tell you what to change on your LinkedIn profile. I can even write it for you, but if you don't upload it, it's not going to happen. And when I write it for people, I need them to be with me in the process. I need them to understand why I chose certain things. I need them to buy into, yes, that makes sense. I can write something and you're like, yeah, but I don't really think that I really did it that way. And so the buy-in isn't there. You don't feel like it represents you. What I now look for in a client is someone who understands the client is going to be the one driving the car. Your hands are on the wheel and your foot is on the gas and the brake. I am metaphorically either sitting in the car next to you with the map, or I am like created the map in the GPS system, or you can call me and ask for help when you get lost, but like I've given you the directions, meaning you get to make the decisions. But the gas pedal metaphor is very important. You're the one moving the car forward, not me. And there's so many reasons for that, but ultimately you have to have the buy-in. You're going to be the one in interviews. It's your own network that is invested in you. You can't really outsource your network by paying people. Who are you going to pay to make an introduction? Am I going to pay each person that I want to introduce you to? If I like you and I respect you, I can introduce you, but it's much more valuable when someone from your own network who's worked with you or who loves you or lives next to you or understands how great you are, you didn't pay that person to say you're great. So they say, hey, you have to meet so-and-so. It's very different than when I say it and you're paying me. It doesn't mean that I don't introduce my clients to people, but usually I maybe introduce each client to one person at the most because I can't constantly go to my network with all my clients and burn out my own network. To be totally honest, I need you to network. I need you to be the one figuring out what you want to apply to. I'm here to help you. I'm here to direct you, but you're having to move the car forward, if that makes sense. I'm more in a teacher role or a coach role, if you will. So you can't just show up to meetings and not do anything between. And I'm clear about that. And I need you to be clear about that if you're going to hire someone, that there's still certain mental labor, emotional labor that's going to fall on you in this process. And I would say if you are in a place where you're not ready to do that sort of work, then you probably shouldn't hire someone at all. And we can save you a lot of time and effort. And then you can think about what you need to do that. Maybe you should stay in the job you're in. And again, that's up to you, but maybe you'll choose to stay in the job you're in until you're ready. Or maybe you'll choose to take some time off. Or I don't know what your options will be for you personally, but being clear on what your role is going to be essential to your success in the job search process, in taking advice or hiring someone or joining a program. All right, so we've basically talked about just like career coaches. I don't know how many other people call themselves job search strategists, but now I'm gonna get into the resume writing stuff and I'm gonna do a quick and dirty, should you hire a resume writer? The first question I want you to ask yourself is, are you sure that a resume itself is gonna help you get the job? What if you have the perfect resume and you still can't get the job? How do you know if that's going to help? I think that's a really important question that you can potentially ask the resume writer. You can ask the career coach. You could ask some different people, and I'd get differing opinions on that to make sure that you don't invest in one piece of a solution that's not going to make a difference. Let's go with the example of, let's say that I really want to, I got a personal trainer about a year ago because I noticed that I was struggling to, specifically, I went up 700 stairs on this volcanic rock, and I'd done this several times before, and I was really slow. And I was noticing that I'm slow walking up hills, I'm breathing heavier, I wanted to make sure I had more energy, right? So I had to be clear that, diet and that was going to play a part. I don't even like saying the word diet. What I eat, what I drink, my sleeping habits, all these other things were going to play into this. So I had actually gone through a health program with the amazing Sarah Knight. She might have seen her live. She was a former client. And I had already started drinking a lot more water, not a gallon. Y'all look at the research. About 2.5 liters a day, and tracking my water consumption. I had already started drinking smoothies in the morning that involved, like, they're health food smoothies. They have vegetables in them, things like that. I'd already been doing those elements, and I had those in place. And that was something my trainer even asked me about, my personal trainer. So I hired a personal trainer, and now I have the exercise component as well. So if I thought, maybe I would still struggle to have the energy and like not breathe heavily if I exercised with this trainer 2 times a week, but I then was super sedentary the rest of the week and ate badly and didn't drink enough water and things like that, right? I don't want to talk about weight loss. That's not why I did it. And, I think we emphasize weight loss too much. But I think health in general has to be holistic, just like the job search process itself has to be holistic. Is the resume itself going to get you the job? If you're not sure, if I weren't sure, I wouldn't make that investment. What is the solution you're looking for? Getting a job. Is the resume going to get you there? And then the other thing about resume writing is, what are they actually going to be doing? I'm not surprised anymore, but I was very surprised to learn that many people were paying a resume writer anywhere between hundreds to $2,000 to create a resume for them without ever talking to them. And talking to you can be, it doesn't necessarily have to be meetings or something, but how are they getting to know you? Because if they just take the resume that you have, if there's information missing, if you didn't actually explain that you led something well because you didn't use the right word, and they just take and reformat that, you're paying them hundreds of dollars to reformat that. Is that what your challenge was, the formatting? I think if you're hiring someone to reformat and make your resume more beautiful, be clear about that. If you're hiring someone to rebuild your resume, and I use the word build because I think build implies that we need to get different materials. We need to look at what is the input. Are we going to use bricks or going to use wood? Where are those bricks coming from? If you say, oh, I want to build a house, but here's the materials we have, I can't guarantee that that's going to be a strong house. If the materials we have to work with aren't the best materials to begin with. So think about that, and you know what? Does it make sense to pay someone $99, $100, $200 to reformat your resume for you? Maybe. And maybe they can take some raw information and change it. But what are you looking for? If you're looking for impact, how are they going to understand what you're capable of? Let me put this one more way. If someone is going to create an ad for you, for your business, do they understand your business? Do they understand what the value proposition of your business is? Because if all they had to go off of was the previous ad, and the previous ad didn't explain well how great you are at your business, then how are they going to know what the value proposition is? Make sure that they understand you and what you bring to the table, and make sure you understand what they're selling you. Is it a true resume rebuild, which might be like a rewrite? Is it advice on how to improve your resume, or is it just like reformatting, redesigning? What are you paying for, and which one do you actually need? So just be very cautious about hiring a resume writer, especially if you've had a break, especially if you're making a pivot or some kind of a career change. If you are in general feeling like you can do a job, but you're struggling to market yourself for that job, marketing yourself, the resume is a strong piece of it, but not the only piece. So be careful that that's actually what you need and that they can provide it in a way that will help you. All right, so on the flip side, I want to give you some red flags to watch out for with people that you're going to hire or programs, the way that they talk. It could be the leader of the program. Maybe there's other coaches in that. I was in a program that I interacted more with the coaches, not the person who created the program, and I still really liked the program. So I understand you might be buying into that person and their methodology and their values, but they should be teaching their method and their values to everyone involved. So if they are shaming you, and shaming you is often like, why didn't you do this? Or look for should language, like you should just be able to do this. What is that? Like, that is a cheap way that people will often give free advice, and they'll try to get your attention on Instagram or LinkedIn to be like, all the things that you're doing wrong all the time. It's okay to say, hey, here's 5 mistakes I see in resumes or something, or 5 mistakes I see in interviews. But if that's what they always are talking about negative, it's like, you're wrong, you're doing this wrong. At some point, you're the one who's going to be leading this process. So if they're sort of shaming you, or you end up feeling kind of like icky or negative, or you feel like you're being scolded, or there's like this weird dynamic, just watch out for that. Because as much as we think we want to recognize that, sometimes we see that as authority. So watch out for someone who's shaming you and trying to use that as authority. Another red flag is someone who's not talking about self-trust. So at the end of the day, if I say that my advice is absolute and you keep saying, I don't think this is right for me, I'm not going to say to you, but it is. I'm going to say, okay, tell me about that. Or the other thing I'm going to do to foster self-trust is to tell you, here's what I recommend and why. And I'm going to ask you, does that apply to you? Do you think that applies to you? Or if it's in a group setting, I might have to say, I'll keep reminding people, you have to see if this reasoning makes sense to you. And if it doesn't, please ask me. So at the end of the day, look for someone who's not fostering any self-trust. And what that might look like is not explaining why they're giving the advice they're giving and not giving you the background behind that. Because they should be welcoming your skepticism, especially if it's early in the process. And if you have doubts about if something's applying to you, like they should be helping you figure that out, even if it's through email or something like that. Or you can even, you can look for this in the sales page. You can often tell in someone's program page if they're fostering self-trust. Again, are they explaining why they recommend what they recommend? Look for that. Okay, there's so much more that I could say about trying to figure out what programs you should join, who you should hire. I think at the end of the day, like I would say overall, take your time. Don't be afraid to ask a trusted friend, a trusted colleague, a significant other, and because that's something that I always want to make sure someone makes the right decision. Someone who's asking to make split-second decisions. Yes, sometimes we have limited time products that have to be purchased quickly because we only have a few spots, but in terms of like a longer engagement, usually the longer the engagement, the more time you're going to have to make that decision if you want to join it. So I hope that you can not only use this video to go through these questions and use the ones that you like to help you figure out if you want to hire someone, what types of programs you want to join, or maybe even some of this is gonna, like someone who shames you. That could be someone who's just giving you free advice. So how to filter that advice as a whole. But I also hope this video helps you think of other questions you want to ask. If you think about the beginning of this, I'm saying, I really want you to decide who knows more about this than you. And I gave you a ton of examples of ways to figure out who's going to be able to help you, who's not going to be able to help you, what you need. And you probably, hopefully, are going to come up with your own questions. And I encourage that. So as always, I'm very grateful that you spent this time with me. I hope that this video was helpful for you. And if it was, I would love it if you would subscribe and click on that bell so that you get notified about the future videos. More or less, there's a new video every single week. So you can always come back and get more from these every week. I also often go live once a week. It's usually on Thursdays at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. So I encourage you to head over, to my Instagram or my LinkedIn profile and check that out and see if there's a live session coming up. I would love to hear from you, have a chance to interact with you and get to know you better.